Welcome back, everyone. Today I am drawing Katniss Everdeen in celebration of Mockingjay Part 2 coming out today in the US. I actually hadn't seen Mockingjay Part 1 until the day I was drawing this picture. Like, I literally had both my monitors. On one monitor I was drawing Katniss, and on the monitor to my left I was watching Mockingjay Part 1 for the first time. And so if you notice in the Speedpaint, if like there's any like pause in the drawing and like nothing seems to be, drawing, which is the point of the time lapse, that's because something interesting was happening in the movie, so I was like, my eyes just sort of like drifted all the way to the left, and I was just watching the movie, and they're like, shoot, I was drawing, I forgot. So I did enjoy this movie, and I can't wait for the next one. And I'm really glad that I didn't watch it till now, because now I don't have to wait that long to see what happens next. So originally I was going to draw Katniss pulling the bow back, so if you see my first sketch layer, she was pulling the bow back, and then right now I'm deciding, why don't I try something a little bit different, try to push my boundaries a little bit, because I always draw Katniss pulling an arrow back. So I thought, why don't I draw her hand pulling an arrow from her quiver, because that'd be like a really cool idea. Because I've never done that before, so of course it's a cool idea. But, yeah, I decided to do that, and I really liked the way the hand turned out in the first try, so I was like, maybe I should go with this. I should go with my gut. It's turning out alright. Let's not mess this up. Let's just go forward. So that's what happened, and I really like that. There's just days when I can draw hands just like fine if I'm not thinking about it. I'm just draw a hand. I'm like, that looks great. I'm not gonna think about it. Just keep moving on. But then there's days when like you're really thinking about the hands, and I just cannot draw a hand to save my life. But today was not one of those days, so I just thought I would celebrate and announce it, because that's amazing. Like, when does that happen? But it happened, so yeah. And now I'm working on her boots, I think. Yeah. So this is something that's very important. When you're drawing a character like Katniss in this movie, she's got like armor, and armor is really complicated. It's not just a t-shirt and pants. There's like a lot going on. It's very complicated. There's a lot of detail to be put into it. So I find it's much easier to draw armor when you use a second sketch layer, which I use for everything, but I found it especially useful when I was drawing her armor. So basically what I did was, with the first sketch layer, I drew Katniss, and I had her whole body, and I just figured out the pose. I wasn't worried about all that armor, because you can get bogged down by all the details. Sometimes I can freak you out a little bit and can trigger a little bit of an art block, but I didn't let it bother me. Instead, I put it off until the second sketch layer, and then when I got down to the second sketch layer is when I started adding all the details in the armor and started thinking about it, and that's how I drew the armor. So I think it's especially important to do a second sketch layer when it comes to armor, because I know, at least for me, if I try to draw the armor without drawing the body underneath, I'm going to have a really weird shaped Katniss, and that's not what I want. I want a Katniss that looks like a human being. So I decided to draw her first, and then I drew the armor on top later. And then at this point, I had decided I wanted to draw a background, but I really didn't have an idea. Well, I had an idea, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to look like. Since I did put her foot up on something, I kind of at first pictured her standing up on like a cliff, and like behind her it's all burning and like dark colored, and then in front of her it's all the clean whiteness of like the Capitol. So that was like the idea. It didn't end up working out that well because I don't have a lot of experience with backgrounds, but I did draw a background, so if you stay tuned you can see the background I drew, and there's a lot of fire and explosion, because you can't have a drawing with Katniss the girl on fire without there being some form of fire and there being some form of explosion, because she causes a lot of explosions, okay? So yeah, that was the idea behind the background, at least. So it's basically her taking the Capitol, and yeah, that's why there's lots of fire. I said that already, but saying it again. Now I am doing the line art, actually. This is her hair, and I really wanted her hair to be just like crazy and like I don't know, just going everywhere, because hair doesn't stay where you want it to all the time, and I wanted it to just look, I don't know, like Katniss, because she's not like a well put together person. She has her troubles, and she has her like faults, and she has her things she's good at as well, but I mean, everybody isn't perfect, so I wanted her hair to just be like everywhere. So that was the idea behind that, and the bangs. Here I am drawing her Mockingjay Pin, but later I flipped the canvas, so now the Mockingjay Pin is backwards. So I fixed that later, and I actually used layer styles to get it to look pretty cool and look separate from the rest of the image, so it kind of stands out a little bit better. So you can see that. I think that's the last thing I do, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. Now I'm just continuing to do the armor. And one thing I noticed since I was watching a movie while I was drawing this is, I think because I wasn't completely like emotionally invested in the picture, it turned out better. And that might sound really weird, but let me just explain why I think that. So sometimes when you're drawing a picture, you start focusing on some emotional things that aren't so much to do with what you're drawing. Like, you might start thinking about, what are people going to think about this? Oh, people are going to think this is terrible, and like all these like little inner conversations in your head while you're drawing it that you can't like get rid of if you're not listening to music or something, which is why I like to listen to music. But this time I was watching a movie, and I think it worked really, really well because I wasn't thinking about how bad or good this picture was going to turn out. I was thinking about, holy shoot, Katniss needs some help, man. She's gonna get blown up or murdered or something. So like, my heart and my brain were thinking about Katniss over here and what was happening to her and Peeta and Gale and Primrose and like everybody and the cat, whatever its name was, and then my hand was just drawing and I wasn't thinking about it. And I thought, I don't know if that's a good thing, but I think it did help me in this instant, especially since this is a very complicated drawing, and it's probably the longest I've ever spent on a drawing in a very, very long time. I think I spent, the entire time of Mockingjay Part 1, which is 2 hours, and then there was a bit of time at the end just finishing it up. So I spent over 2 hours on this picture, which is kind of crazy for me. I'm more of like I don't know how I would describe that. I'm not someone that usually spends a lot of time on a drawing. I like to finish something and move on to something else. But with this picture, I did spend a lot of time, and I think it shows in the way it looks. Oh, and now I am coloring. I really wanted her to look kind of anguished and angry and upset at the same time. So that's why her face is so wrinkly and upset and anguished and angry at the same time. So, hey, I think it worked out. I did mess up with the shading, and I did spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to shade her face without making her look super angry. Like, I wanted emotion in that face, but I also wanted it to look soft. So that's what was going on. And I messed around with the hair color a lot. I just wanted it to look like her hair's dark in some scenes and lighter in others, but I needed one that looked good with her in the black outfit. And about the black outfit, I almost drew her in her red one, like her promotional red outfit, but I decided to go with the black just because it was in the movie and it just felt more appropriate for at least the situation of the scene and everything. And originally, I wasn't going to shade her outfit because I was like, that's going to take forever. But then I still had an hour left in the movie, so I decided to shade it. And to give it a little bit more variation in the in the coloring, I actually put in a little bit of red, to hint back at the red promotional outfit, into her armor, so that if you look at it, it might not be like completely noticeable if I hadn't told you. Like, it just looks like a black outfit, but there are hints of red in there, and I like it. So that was the idea, and now I'm just adding a little bit of shine since that's a different material than the clothing underneath. I wanted it to look a little bit shinier so that you could tell the difference between the different materials. Oh, something I forgot to mention was, I don't know if you've ever seen any of my other drawings, but when I draw girls, I like to have them huge, voluminous eyelashes. It's just like one of my guilty pleasures. I love to draw huge eyelashes, and I had to fight myself, tooth and nail, not to give Katniss those huge, poofy eyelashes, because that's not Katniss, okay? Let's just be frank here. She's not a super girly, poofy eyelash kind of girl. So I had to fight myself not to do it. I did, in the end, give her a little bit of eyelashes just because I couldn't help myself, but for the most part, I was able to keep myself under control and not give her huge, ginormous eyelashes. If you look in the sketch layer back at the beginning of this drawing, she did have huge eyelashes, and I slowly began to cope with that. So I think it turned out alright. And now I'm doing explosions, so why am I talking about eyelashes? There are explosions to talk about. I'm trying to draw an explosion. I've never done this in my entire life. I was looking at a reference. Nothing was really turning out. And then eventually, right there, I adjusted the hue and saturation and found a color that I liked better. And that's what I ended up with. And then I just added more bits of stuff just flying everywhere. And that's my explosion. It needs practice. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's an explosion. So. Oh, and here I am drawing her Mockingjay Pin, which I used layer styles. And if you want to know more about layer styles, check out my Supergirl drawing, which I did, I think, 2 weeks ago now, where I talk a little bit more in depth about layer styles and how to get it to look like that. Yeah, here I'm just playing with the red outfit, because I'm like, should I do it in the red? Because, like, I feel like her hair was blending in too much with the black outfit, but in the end, I do pick the black outfit, and yeah. So this is the finished illustration of Katniss Everdeen from Mockingjay Part 2, which I'm excited to see. Let me know if you're going to be seeing that movie this week or in the future in the comments below. And let me know if you drew Katniss to celebrate the movie coming out. I think that'd be cool. And yeah, I'll see you guys all next week. Have a delicious evening full of waffles. Bye!